Hello, everyone. Thank you and welcome. So you've tuned into this Your Overseas Home webinar on Portugal's Golden Visa. My name is Richard Way, a member of the Your Overseas Home team, and I'll be hosting this session. It's great to have you watching, whether you're watching it live or you might be watching our recorded version, which is available through our on-demand page on the Your Overseas Home website. So Golden Visas, Portuguese Golden Visa. Essentially, these are a type of investment visa scheme that enable you and usually your family to obtain residency or citizenship in a country by investing there. Typically, but not exclusively, in investing in a business, financial institutions or funds, and depending on the country, in property. For non-EU citizens, which includes obviously Britons and Americans, Golden visas can be a useful and relatively fast way to gain a flexible foothold in Europe. Portugal's Golden Visa scheme has been one of, if not the most popular in Europe. Despite changes to its rules in the past 18 months or so, it's still a highly attractive option for non-EU citizens. That's about as much as I want to say, because we're fortunate to have today's specialist speaker tell us all about this, and that is Jason Swan from international financial services provider Holborn Assets. Jason is both a citizen by investment expert and qualified financial planner, and spends his days advising and helping international clients obtain golden visas in Portugal. I've just been chatting to him, and he's based down there as well in Albufeira. He's told me it's around 40 degrees there today, so he looks pretty cool. Though his aircon's struggling to keep up, he said. But welcome, Jason, from the sunny Algarve. We've got about 45 minutes for this session. Jason's is, I'm going to do an introduction. Jason's then going to do a presentation, which will take up a large chunk of it. But we also want to hear from you, and we encourage questions from our audience, from our listeners. So make use of having Jason live and available to answer questions in real time. To ask a question, use the questions tool that you should see on your dashboard, type it in there, and then I shall field them to Jason at appropriate time. Jason, welcome, over to you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. And yes, as Richard said, I have put together a crash course, really, on Portugal's Golden Visa. I think the last time, Richard, we were talking was back in July. And I kind of brought everyone up to speed. There's been quite a few things changed since July, so I've put together a bit of a monthly roundup, if you like, of what's been happening. The big question at the moment is the change from the citizenship timeline, potentially increasing from 5 to 10 years, which I'm fielding a question on pretty much on the hour, every hour at the moment. So I'll cover off the latest as far as the timeline, recent news. We'll go through some basics, and really, as you say, Richard, we want to encourage any questions. I mean, we do the presentation really to to give you everything that you need to know. But if there is any questions you have as we go through, fire them at me, and I'll likely cover the majority of them as we go through. But yeah, feel free to say hello. It's nice to have you to chat to, really, Richard, because normally when I'm presenting, I'm talking to myself, which gets a bit boring. But
I'm here.
It's good to, and yeah, it is very hot at the moment. I'm down in Albufeira. This actually on the screen is Albufeira down in the south, which, in my slightly biased opinion, is the best part of Portugal to head towards. But yeah, we'll get stuck in, and hopefully everyone gets some value out of the presentation. And yeah, anything that I miss, please bear with me. Fire in any questions. We've got a lot to cover. I'm going to try and cover everything that you need to know about the Golden Visa in around about 30 minutes. Then we'll jump into some questions. If you are watching for the first time, or if you haven't watched any other presentations from myself, to introduce me, I'm Jason Swan. I'm one of the senior partners for Holborn Assets. As Richard said, we are a wealth management practice by trade. We look after approximately $3 billion between 26 offices now globally. I'm, of course, down in Portugal, where I have been now for the past 4 years. Fortunately, I'm much more talented with numbers and money and visas than I am languages. Unfortunately, Richard, my Portuguese is equally as embarrassing as it was last time we spoke in July. But other than learning the language, if you do have questions around the visa programs, of course, but also any money matters, but also generally living in Portugal, I'll try and add some value where I can. We have done now over 10% of the world's golden visa applications since we introduced this part of the group around 6 years back. We have maintained a 100% success rate on those applications as well. I think I've personally been involved with more applications than any other human in the country over the past couple of years. So feel free to ask any complicated questions if you want to test my background as well. But we've seen a pretty big uplift in activity since the elections in the US. Back, I think November was it last year, and yeah, at the moment we're seeing an increased demand across the board, really, especially in light of the proposed changes to the citizenship law over the coming months as well. But as a general overview to what we offer as part of the service, it is very much an all-encompassing one-stop shop, if you will. We offer all the services required to achieve the visa and to look after you right throughout up until when you receive the passport, if that is something that you wish to apply for. Within my team, we'll be on hand to assist with setting up your tax numbers. We'll be here to set up your bank account in Portugal, also provide all the legal work that's required to submit the application. We're responsible for the document collection, and we also manage all the different parties involved in the process, including the lawyers, the investment managers, the bank manager, the tax office, the immigration office, and to the best of our ability, we kind of keep everything as one line of communication. We're trying to take away some of that work for you along the way. If you do get a chance, please do type my name into Google or have a look at some of our recent awards to get a bit of a better background on our experience within the industry. And of course, you'll see lots of content from me online as well to help with your study, but the most of which we're going to cover, of course, this afternoon. Just a point of interest that if Portugal is not necessarily the one and only track that you are exploring at the moment, it isn't the only route to Europe. And also internationally, we do offer investment citizenship programs around the world. So if you may be thinking about simply getting a plan B or having a second passport without necessarily a need for Portugal, feel free to get in touch and we shall guide you as best as we can. But for today, we're going to cover the Portugal Golden Visa. If you do have your phone handy, you may wish just to take a quick snapshot of the screen at the moment. There is a WhatsApp group now available, which you can subscribe to for free. And within that group, to the best of our ability, we try to share all the latest legal updates, processing updates, investment news, and any other relevant information that we feel we can help on your Golden Visa journey. If you'd like to subscribe to the YouTube channel, you can type in the Golden Visa Guy, and you'll be able to watch me over and over again until you've had enough of my face. But otherwise, we'll get stuck in. So for those, well, let's start with the basics. So the Golden Visa program, if you are just at the beginning of your exploration, is a 2-year visa. It is a visa that allows you to live in Portugal. You can work in Portugal, you can study in Portugal, or you can just do nothing in Portugal. And you can be here for up to 365 days per year. However, it is the only visa for Portugal that doesn't require you to live here full time, nor do you need to become tax resident in Portugal in order to maintain the visa and, of course, to get the passport later down the line. The Portugal program Portugal is the last country now as well where you can actually gain an EU passport without the need to live in Europe and still with a very short timeline of just 5 years to receive citizenship. It's been around now since 2012. There's been over 30,000 applications submitted and counting, and it remains to be, by quite some distance, the most popular route into Europe. It is very much seen as the gateway to Europe. Once you have the passport, you can actually live in any European country. So it's kind of like getting 27 passports all at the same time. And so again, it's something that you don't have to move country right now, even if you're happy where you are, but you like the idea of getting a passport in the future, as long as you can spend just 14 days in Portugal every 2 years. I know that's a horrible thing to have to do, but if you can drag yourself over for just 2 weeks every 2 years, that is all the time you need to be in the country for to get and maintain the visa and to apply for citizenship as well. So, so again, a great way, if you wanted to head to France or Portugal, whether it be Spain, Italy, you can do all of those things through Portugal at the point of applying for your passport. So that's what it is. You also get a lot of benefits from being a visa holder. You're treated very much like a Portuguese citizen. There's two things you can't do that a Portuguese citizen can, and that is to vote and to run for president. But apart from that, you get access to all the same healthcare benefits, all the same education options as well. And if you do become tax resident in Portugal, there are a number of tax incentives for new residents, which can allow a complete tax exemption on certain overseas income for up to 10 years. So again, only relevant if you're physically moving to Portugal, but lots on offer, and that's some of the reasons, of course, clients do apply. Apart from the fact you get to live in the best country in the world, and I shall say that lightly, Richard, because I'm sure there'll be some people saying, "Hang on a second, I'm already in the best country in the world." But in my opinion, the best country in the world. But yeah, so there you go. So that is what's on offer with the Golden Visa. I won't attempt to give a geography lesson, but it's surprising how many people actually apply for the program without actually ever having been to the country. It's surprising. I had a client a couple of weeks back that asked me if the Algarve was the investment provider, which made me chuckle. But of course, the Algarve is down in the south. We have the Lisbon, which is the capital, and Porto tend to be the three most popular destinations in Portugal. But I'm sure you're not going to go too far wrong, no matter where you end up. Have you been to Portugal recently, Richard? You just mentioned your daughter's in Albufeira, didn't you?
My daughter's in Albufeira right now. Yeah, probably doing things that I wouldn't be doing. But the last time I was in Portugal I went actually to Alentejo, and I stayed on an olive farm in Alentejo, which was amazing. And then we went across to a fishing village right on the west coast. I can't remember what it was called now. Sesimbra? Was it Sesimbra? Yeah. And I have been to Valdelobo as well, and around that part. Never to Albufeira, but it's definitely on my list now, listening to you and having a chat earlier. So, and I thought my daughter says as well.
Well, there's good and bad bits of Albufeira, really, but I mean, the coast, the south is slightly warmer. Typically, the beaches are a little bit nicer, but yeah, like I said, it's very much, I mean, the visa is not a decision to move to Portugal. You do not need to have an address. So you don't need to have, unlike other visa options, everything's done from your home address where you live at the moment. So you don't have to decide where you're going to go to, or even if you're going to move to Portugal with the visa. But there you go. But that's the best I can give you on a geography lesson for now. Now let's get stuck into the investment criteria. So there are currently 5 ways investors can qualify for the Golden Visa. Property investment was removed from the criteria back in 2023, which accounted for the majority of applications at the time. But now there is 5 active routes to the Golden Pass. So first one is to set up a business in Portugal. For those that want to employ staff here, if you do help with the job count, the government will reward you with a Golden Visa. If you wish to make a donation to the government, you can do. You can donate 500,000 euros to Portugal's research activities. You can donate 250,000 euros to the national arts. Strangely, after I think over 2,000 applications, Richard, we've still not done any applications for a donation. Strangely, I don't know why. doesn't seem to be all too popular, but for those that maybe are feeling generous, it is very much a possibility. And also, if you do have an existing business, or if you do want to expand into Portugal, if you have an interest in employing staff, then that also is a route to get the visa. But for the vast majority of applications, it is a choice of an investment of some kind. And there's different types of investment investors can choose from, whether it be some form of venture capital or an investment fund from €500,000, or the option to invest directly into excuse me, a Portuguese company, as long as that company will create jobs as a result of that investment. But the rules will cover from the government very shortly. But those are the 5 active categories right now. Now, as far as who can qualify for the visa, the rules are very simple. Unlike other visa types, there's no kind of age restrictions. You don't have to be in a certain occupation. You don't have to prove any income. The rules are very simple. And as long as you don't already have a European passport, you have a clean criminal record, and you make an eligible investment, you're pretty much there. Of course, then just to maintain that 14 days in Portugal every 2 years, that is all. As long as you tick those boxes, your application will be successful. You can also include your family members as well. There is one main applicant that's held, but that main applicant can add as many family members as they wish, as long as they can be deemed as a dependent in some capacity. And that includes their spouse, whether married or unmarried is fine. Parents can be included as well, over the age of 65. They are automatically assumed as dependent, so you don't need to prove dependency, and they can still go on the same application. And also children up to the age of 21 can be included as well, without any proof of dependency. Otherwise, if they are over that age, we will need to provide some form of evidence that they are dependent on the main applicant, but there's different ways to do that. But yeah, I think I think I mentioned last time in July, Richard, the most family members we've managed to get on the same application was 13 a little while back. We had kind of both sides of the family included, and of course, yeah, everyone goes on the same investment and the same process at the same time. So food for thought. I don't know if everyone would want to bring the parents. My parents did actually move out to Spain a couple of years after I did, and then when I moved away from Spain, I literally left them 6 months after I moved out to Spain. I moved over to Portugal. But, I'm thinking of getting them back to Portugal now, because I'm expecting my first child in a few months' time, and I'm thinking of maybe some childcare would be helpful. But we shall see. But anyway, that's so you can include as many family members.
I hope they want to come.
Well, my mum is very settled. They live in a town called Nurka, just on the.
Oh, very nice. I know, yeah.
On the body, and but she's very settled. They've been there for a while, and yeah, I don't know if I could talk them into it, but I'm going to do my best.
Good luck. Good luck.
Now, as far as the process, a bit of a busy slide. I mean, this really is just what happens behind the scenes between now and when we receive the visa cards. But in short, it all starts with really booking in some time. You can schedule an appointment with myself, and I can find out a little bit more about your current situation and plans and interests, and we can go through, of course, all the relevant information that you need to work out if it's something that you wish to pursue. Once we begin the process and you've chosen how you would like to qualify for the visa, we will begin with applying for your Portuguese tax numbers, which is step number 1, referred to as your NIF. Secondly, we'll apply for the Portuguese bank account, which can take some time, but it's actually the longest part of the submission process, really. But we'll get stuck into that from the off. We'll start to gather all the documents that we need for the visa application, things like copies of passports, proof of address, birth certificates for children, criminal records reports, and of course different information to subscribe into the investment and complete power of attorney and things like this. Altogether, all that preparation work takes up to, on average, around 3 months. And once the bank account is open, the investor is able to transfer the funds to their new bank account here in Portugal to make the investment. Thereafter, we're able to submit the application to AIMA. And that day is a very important day, because when we submit the application, that is when the time to citizenship, the clock begins to tick. And it will also consolidate the laws of which you have submitted your application under, protecting you against future changes to the program, which of course is very relevant at the moment with the potential law changes with citizenship, which we'll come up to shortly. However, that is the submission. Also, not a lot of people are aware of this fact, but it is possible to reside in Portugal from the point of submitting your application as well. Now, the visa itself will take some time to come through, but if you can't wait for the visa and you want to move straight away, you can do that whilst we wait for the visa to come through. But otherwise, we will simply wait for the biometrics appointment to be assigned. That'll be the first time we need you physically in Portugal to do your fingerprints and your photo. We will be there to accompany you on the day to make sure we can help with translation. We'll make sure that you're fully prepared, and to try and keep you entertained as best as possible during what is a pretty soul-destroying day at AIMA. And it's not going to be the most enjoyable day of your holiday, but it's important, and we'll be there to support you to make sure it goes to plan. Otherwise, we will await the visa to be issued, and then you are officially a resident of Portugal without the need to be fully resident in Portugal. And that's, of course, when those benefits will begin from that time. And then you are on the path towards citizenship, should you so wish. And as a quick recap of the timeline, it will take us up to around 3 months to submit the application. We can expect the visa in around 12 to 18 months as a guide. It has been faster. This year we have seen applications in 6 months. We also see applications take longer than 18 months as well. But when that's issued, it will last for 2 years, at the end of which we will renew the visa for the first time for a further 2 years. We'll renew the visa again for a second time. And around that same time, as long as you have kept a clean criminal record and you have passed an A2 language exam for Portuguese and or done the minimum hours study for the certificate, we can submit your application for permanent residency and, of course, citizenship as well. And as a reminder, it is when you get the passport that you can then live in any European country from that time. And that's mission complete. That is the treasure at the end of the rainbow, to get the passport, and of course then you have that freedom of travel. And I'm sure you will not find any other country that you like more than Portugal. But just in case you did, if you was strangely fed up of Portugal, you can then head off to anywhere in Europe. But that's the process, if you like. I'm just going to go through now a brief overview on the kind of rules behind investing, and we'll go through some of the recent news updates as well. And then we'll jump into some questions, Richard, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, actually, I'll ask one question now, because it is relevant to the process. The application, is it per person or per family? The investment requirement. So is it just one person making a €500,000 investment and their family sort of piggybacking on that application? It's not the same amount of investment per person on the application.
Correct. Yeah. So there's one investment, and then on that one investment, you can have all of the family included on the visa.
Okay, great. So you kind of spread the cost, really. Yeah.
Indeed. As long as the money comes from an account that's held in the main applicant's name before it comes to Portugal, then that's fine. Yeah, no problem. Okay,
great. There you are, Susan. Susan asked that question. Hopefully, well, that does answer it. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so let me run you through the investment requirements set by the government. So just covering off investment into investment funds, venture capital funds, or mutual funds. There are really four rules, if you like, and then one kind of best practice. Of course, in the universe, there are tens of thousands of investment funds to choose from. However, there is only a very, very small list of funds that will qualify as per what the Portuguese government would like to see. And the rules are as follows. So first of all, the fund has to be approved and regulated in Portugal by the regulatory body here, which is the CMVM. The fund can no longer invest directly or indirectly into any kind of real estate, which came into effect 2 years back. The fund must invest at least 60% of its capital into Portuguese companies or Portuguese securities as well. So, for example, you couldn't have a Portuguese fund that tracks the US stock market. And likewise, you couldn't have a UK fund that's investing into Portugal. It's got to be a Portuguese fund that is predominantly investing into Portugal. The minimum investment, of course, is €500,000. And ideally, it is best practice to remain invested until you've got the passport in your hand, or at least the permanent residency completed. In the event that a third renewal is needed, if you do come out of the investment, it would jeopardize the ability to renew the visa. So best practice is to stay invested until everything's completely finished. And that's, again, important when you're looking at different investments to see when and if they mature after a certain date, because you don't want to be in a position of having no investment after 5 years when actually we might need a little bit longer. So, but otherwise, that's it. Those are the rules. As long as the fund ticks those boxes, it will be successful for your golden visa. Naturally, as part of our process, we're happy to share with you different investment funds. We're not tied to any particular investment managers, so we're here to focus on a successful visa application. I'm very happy to share popular investments, in line with what you're looking to do. But if you're doing your own research and you want to search for different funds, just be mindful of, the fact that you are investing into Portuguese funds, and not that that's necessarily a bad thing. You may be aware that Portugal is, or the Portuguese financial system is not as robust as the likes of the US and the UK, and it is very important that you have a clear understanding of the security that you have for the investment capital. Just because a fund will qualify for a visa doesn't necessarily mean that reflects on the security of the investment. And you do not, of course, want the visa to cost you €500,000. So this is important. Be clear as to what you're investing into. Different funds also will tie up the investment capital for different periods of time. So again, bearing in mind the time that you need to be invested for the visa, if the fund has penalties to pay up to, say, 10 years from now, and where you can, you want to stay clear of additional penalties when you have the passport. Be mindful of fees. Portuguese funds can be, by comparison to other countries, quite expensive. I personally don't mind paying fees as long as they are justified, but always be sure to have a clear breakdown of what the fees are. And be clear on, of course, the risk of the investment, understand how the returns are paid. If you are a US citizen, also be mindful of the additional reporting requirements back to the States for investments that you hold overseas. Not all fund managers and banks are able to provide the reporting as part of the FATCA regulation, and can make things a little tricky when it comes to tax time back home. But like I said, make sure you get all the key facts. As part of our process, if you have seen funds that you like the look of, if you'd like to check if they qualify, if you'd like us to gather the key information to make sure you're armed with the clear facts to know exactly how the fund is comprised and what the risk is, then feel free to share, and we'll be happy to make sure you have that information on hand. Otherwise, there are no restrictions on how to invest. You can choose any fund manager, any fund, as long as it meets those rules from the government. You can invest in any sector, and they come in all different shapes and sizes, in summary. This slide gives you a kind of a bird's eye view on what Portuguese funds can look like. The risk rating of qualifying funds can vary drastically from low risk to exceptionally high risk investment ventures. Time periods, as we mentioned, can be anything from no penalties at all at any time for a withdrawal up to 14 years down the line, still having penalties to withdraw. Setup fees can be from no fees at all up to 3%. Management fees can be from 0 to 3%. And of course, the performance of the investments will vary, ultimately depending on the appetite for investment risk that you decide to take on. There are some investments that offer a fixed return. It's not uncommon for foreign investors to be unfamiliar with investing into Portuguese stock markets. And for some, it can be quite intimidating. Even with a good investment background, often we see our clients don't feel all too confident with going into Portuguese stocks. So, as again, often we see requests for a fixed return, where you know exactly what's going to come back out and when it's going to come back out, rather than trying to make lots of money as part of the process. But ultimately, it is the investor's decision, and we can share all funds that can qualify for the program as part of our service. As of today's date, it is the lowest capital required to qualify for the visa is a donation to the arts of €250,000, which is a sunk cost. That is literally a donation to government. There is still one investment available that pays. It's actually a mixture of an upfront return. So there is a provider that pays 6 years return upfront to the investor as one big lump sum, which comes to €101,000. And that money can be used towards the 500,000 that's to be invested to qualify for the visa. And there is also a loan facility as well. Both comprised actually reduces the investor's capital required to 325, and it has a fixed return of 375,000 at the end of the investment. So it's not the most profitable investment out there, but it is an example of a very low capital requirement to still qualify for the visa. And of course, €50,000 better off. Well, actually, €375,000 better off than making a donation at 250 if you can stretch that extra 75,000 from the donation level. But otherwise, like I say, super quick crash course. I'm conscious of time a little bit. If you have questions, obviously we go through this during a one-to-one meeting. You've got our email address as well down at the bottom for any information on any of the slides. You'd be very welcome to ask about. Otherwise, quick snapshot on the news, and then we'll jump in to some questions. Where to start? NHR 2.0. So I mentioned before about tax incentives. Not the most exciting topic, talking about tax, but it is exciting when I tell you what it is, because if you are moving to Portugal and becoming a tax resident, potentially, depending on your circumstances, you can apply for a very unique tax regime called NHR, which stands for non-habitual residency. And it allows, for those that are still working in a certain capacity, potentially you can apply for a flat rate of just 20% income tax. For those that have income from abroad, such as rental income, capital gains, interest, what else? Anything. Apart from pensions, pension income is not part of the current program, but any income from overseas potentially can be exempted for 10 years as a big incentive to attract investors to actually move to Portugal, and of course boost the economy as well. But that is currently an active program, but it is the rules or requirements are very stringent as far as how to qualify. It can be possible with a clever investment. You can place around about 100,000 into a qualifying investment as part of the 500,000 to qualify for an HR at the same time. But also in discussion at the moment is the possibility of a blanket tax status being applied to all golden visa investors, whereas all investors will receive that 10-year exemption. Now it's important that I clarify that isn't in action right now, but it is hopefully, I will hopefully see that come to fruition early next year. But we shall see. But that would be great news. The new government is very pro golden visa. It's actually the same government now that it was before property was removed from the investment program. And they are looking to enhance incentives for golden visa investors, which is great news, especially compared to where we was not too long back when the program was due to be closed. But all in all, like I say, hopefully some good news there to look forward to. Okay, the big question around the timeline change from 5 to 10 years. So this is what is being talked about at the moment. There are 3 key topics on this section. So first of all, the government has proposed to increase the timeline to get a passport from 5 to 10 years. And in addition to that, potentially, applicants will need to take an additional test. So not only will you have to pass the language test, but you will have to take a cultural exam as well. I think I'd probably have a better chance of passing the cultural exam, Richard, than the language test. But it might be both. But that may come in. And also another part is when the timeline begins as well. At the moment, that 5-year clock begins from when you submit your application. So even if you don't get the visa for 2 years, it will still be a maximum of 5 years when you can apply for the passport. However, it is being discussed that that timeline will begin from the receipt of the visa, which then we could be looking at 12 years. You could say 2 years for the visa, then the 10-year clock starts in the worst case scenario. So they're pretty substantial changes, but again, it's important to clarify that these have not happened just yet. Very similar to when I remember back in 2023 when I was watching Manchester United play Seville. In Seville at the time, my phone started ringing off the hook because there was an announcement on Bloomberg that the golden visa program had been closed. And it spread like wildfire and had a lot of worried clients. And the reality is it didn't close. And these big changes take some time. And there is a legal process before laws can change. At the time, it took 10 months before the law changed from that announcement. And of course, the program didn't close as well. So there is a lot of hearsay available on the internet, a lot of inaccurate information. And it's just important to know that these changes haven't come into effect just yet, but they may do.
Yeah.
And before they do, we will see now in September, Parliament will debate, which changes make sense for Portugal, which will go against the constitutional rights of Portugal, and the President will decide, if those changes are to come into effect and when they will come into effect. There was recently there was a proposal to change some of the laws with regard to the family reunification process, and 75% of that bill was immediately rejected by the President because it was in conflict with the constitutional rights of Portugal. So we may see something similar in September with the citizenship timeline, but we shall see. We shall see, but it will take some time. We'll also find out as well if and when that new law comes into effect, and if there's going to be a transitional period as well. Often the government will give a bit of leeway in order for applicants to complete their applications before the law comes in, if they're already underway. So watch this space. Hopefully by the next time we do an update, Richard, we shall know a little bit more on that front. But to protect against it, again, just want to highlight that if you do, at this stage, we understand that those changes will not apply to applications before the law comes into effect. It's difficult to say when those laws will come in. It could be this year. Again, realistically, I think it will be next year now. But just be mindful that it takes a bit of time to submit an application, and it's only at the submission date which you can consolidate those existing laws. So if it is important to get the passport, and it's important to get it after 5 years instead of 10, it is strongly advised to start to look to begin that preliminary work, at least with things like your tax numbers and your bank account, in order to submit your application before that comes into effect. And I think come September, when there is further news, we will see an influx of applications trying to beat that deadline, which may extend that 3 months to get everything done even more so. So yeah, depending on how important that is, the sooner you can get ahead of the crowd, the better. Otherwise, that's where we're at. Last thing for me is talking about Portuguese lessons. Actually, I should do this myself, but as part of the service for applications, actually, the next couple of days. If you take a note of these details, if you just ask me about this, if you do book in for a discussion, and we should be able to include a private tutor to help you with your Portuguese lessons as well. We have got the 30th of August. I appreciate that's quite short notice, but I'm sure we can extend that a little bit. But be a 12-week language course would be included to hopefully help you much better than I've helped myself so far understand language. And that will set you up nicely, of course, for your passport application later on. But otherwise, I hope that was helpful, and always, get accurate information before you make any big investments. Always make sure you're speaking to an expert. And if you do have any questions, I'll, of course, field some now in the time that we've got, Richard. And if you do want to speak privately, you can, again, send us an email at goldenvisa@holbornassets.com. And you can also scan the QR code and request a meeting should you wish to go into some more specifics on the topic. But I'll take a breather.
Well,
Richard, if that's all right.
I think you need a breather there. Yeah. Thank you, Jason. Lots of information there. Thank you so much. I think it's fair to say that it's been a bit of a moving target, hasn't it? The golden visa in the last few years, almost a political football, as when they've had changes of government. So that point you made about if you think it's something you want to do, don't wait to do it, probably is the best thing, and before the rules change again, because generally the options seem to be getting less or fewer than greater at the moment in the climate, not just in Portugal, but generally across Europe with golden visas. So it's probably a wise thing not to delay your application. Not least you might not get free language classes, but is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say. The good news is the golden visa program isn't going anywhere. It wasn't too long back when it was going to be closed, but what is clear now is that the government is fully supporting it. They're going to hopefully enhance it even more. So it's important that to understand that the visa itself is not changing. It's only the citizenship timeline. It's the passport that is under discussion, and also the path to permanent residency is not changing either. So that even if it does go to 10 years, it will still be a maximum of 5 years to get the permanent residency. Anyway, so but yes, if it's something that's important, it's always good to take action whilst you know exactly what the laws look like.
And if the citizenship does go to 10 years to qualify for citizenship, will these the qualifying funds, will the investment terms, you just extend them, will you? Is that what will happen generally, or instead of having
a good amount of the funds are what's called open-ended funds, and you can stay invested for as long as you like. Some investors, I'm sure, will stay invested anyway, just to generate returns on their investment to the passport. But yeah, it's something to factor in, because again, if we choose an investment that has a fixed maturity date, then it can make a difference. But again, as long as the application is submitted before the law changes, then you can be confident that the same timeline will apply. It's only after that law change when we need to maybe be a bit more mindful of them.
Perfect. Okay, we've got some questions. Let's have a look at these. The question from Steve. He's talking about if you opt for the business creation route to qualify for your visa. He says, does it need to be 10 people working full time? You're creating 10 full-time jobs, and also can the 10 people employed, could they be family or any of them be family members? Good question.
They do need to be full-time, and they can be family members. Yeah, there's no restrictions against that as long as they are Portuguese residents. So it's Portuguese jobs for Portuguese people that the government's looking for support with. So if your family is Portuguese, if they were Portuguese, you probably wouldn't need a visa, to be fair. So assuming that they're not Portuguese, they would need to live in Portugal. Otherwise, the answer would be no, and you would just need to employ 10 Portuguese citizens.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I think you've answered some of this already, but Jeff asks, does the investment, the qualifying investment, have to be locked into Portugal? Or can they go elsewhere in the EU? You have said it has to be a Portuguese fund investing 60% in Portugal company securities. Can you repatriate the profits from your fund? And what happens if you sell the business, the qualifying business, or the investment at a later date?
So the first question, yes, you're right, Richard. So it has to be a Portuguese fund regulated by the Portuguese regulator, and that fund has to invest predominantly into Portugal. So it cannot be any other country's fund. It has to be domiciled in Portugal. The second question, I forgot, Richard. Sorry, what was the second point?
Repatriating
profits. Yeah. I'm not too sure what's meant by repatriating profits.
I imagine it means, can you take them out of Portugal to, if you're not a resident of Portugal, can you take them out to?
It's not necessarily, I mean, there's no restrictions on where you take profits out from. What's the important part is that the original 500,000 euros capital remains invested. So it can sometimes be difficult to make withdrawals. If you can demonstrate that the original capital is still there and you've taken out the profits, that's fine. But the difficulty sometimes is that if the investment value then dips down and you've taken withdrawals, it may be looked upon as if you have withdrawn some of that original capital. So it's not really best practice to make withdrawals. It may be possible. And if you do make withdrawals, then yes, you can repatriate those profits anywhere that you like. As far as selling the investment, was the last question there, sorry, Richard?
Yeah, what happens if you sell the business or the investment at a later date?
Well, that ultimately is that is the plan. Ultimately, to to come up with the investment. If you have your passport, there's no further investment requirements, so you can do whatever you like, really. If you do come out with the investment or sell the business before you have permanent residency or the passport, then it would simply mean that you can't renew the visa again, and it would ultimately come to a close. But other than that, you just need to check for things like early withdrawal penalties. Some funds will have penalties if you take the money out before a certain time. But the main thing is, it's just the inability to continue, I suppose, with the visa renewal.
Yeah, just check that it's not going to, take you out of the scheme or nullify your application. Yeah. Another one about the funds. Good question. Does the Portuguese government issue any bonds that qualify you for a golden visa? They don't. No.
Well, there used to be something similar, but no, unfortunately not. There are bond type investments, but not government bonds. No. You can. There is a way where you can fix the returns. You can have a predetermined return, so you're not kind of exposed to the stock markets, but not specifically government funds.
Yeah. Okay. Just on the investment route, it's the fund route. I mean, I don't know anything about Portuguese investment funds, or if I was coming over, I mean, there's a lot of them. I wouldn't know where to start. So if I was talking to you as your client and I said, this is my risk appetite, I want a fixed or variable, would you then be able to present me with sort of a dozen options that would fit that brief, or how does it work? Because I mean, a lot of people won't know, out of the hundreds of funds that are possible, or even thousands, they wouldn't know how to pick the ones if there's that many. Can you guide within your sort of remit?
We can provide investment funds to clients. Yeah, I mean, there isn't a huge list. Even if you
there isn't.
read note of all the fund managers, there is not a big list. And by the time you take out the ones with big fees or no history or small size, and, you're looking at reputable fund managers and things like this, that we find maybe 90% of our clients are choosing from 3 or 4 particularly popular funds.
Okay. So that's there's obviously a core group of funds. Yeah. So you would get to guide people to those funds and say that you don't need to go sifting through all yourself.
We don't give a full advised service because the funds are so restricted. But we will share different investment options with our clients, and then they can choose which ones are the favourites.
Okay. We are over time, but I was going to ask you the in-country requirement. I think there's the term you use, the 14 days every 2 years. That sounds really low. It must be one of the lowest requirements of all golden investment visas in Europe. Is that fair to say? I mean, the flexibility you have with that of literally only having to spend 2 weeks every 2 years to keep your application valid.
Yep.
Seems very generous.
It's literally the only option now. I mean, the Spanish program closed, I think, in February. The Malta program closed in April.
Right.
So Portugal is the last man standing, really, with that minimum stay, and of course a path towards getting citizenship.
Yeah. Okay. We're comfortably over time, so sadly we do have to wrap it up. Covered a lot of ground there. Thank you very much, Jason. So thank you very much to everyone who's watched this, whether you're watching it live or you're watching a recorded version. As I said, it is available on the on-demand page on the Your Overseas Home website. Thank you very much, Jason, to you. Appreciate you giving up your time for this webinar. Enjoy your evening in Albufeira. I won't mention Manchester United, what happened last night, but
yeah, let's just move past that.
Save that till the end, you see. Portuguese manager. A small request from the team here. If you found this webinar useful, we'd appreciate it if you would leave us a review on the review website, Trustpilot. There's a link for you to be able to do that there. And a final save the date as well, which is the 4th of October, when we're hosting the comprehensive Your Overseas Home virtual event, which is happening between 8 AM and 8 PM UK time. So there's overlap there with daylight hours in America, so that US citizens get a chance to tune in as well. So that event will bring together people like Jason and all sorts of service providers, from agents, lawyers, financial advisors, currency people, all into a virtual show where you can talk to them and get all the advice and help you need to make your move abroad or buy a property abroad. We'll have seminars as well, a bit like the session today, where you can listen to experts talking on all sorts of topics and ask questions. And you can do it all from the comfort of your own sofa, because it's remote, but you're still talking to people in real time. So it's free to join. You can do it using the link that's on your screen now. And that's it. Otherwise, that's it from me. Thanks again, Jason. And thank you to you. And good luck with your plans to move to Portugal. Make use of Jason and Holborn Assets. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Jason.